That's like the definition of a bad marriage. It's like we have the same fight every day for 40 years. That's hell. And so the alternative is, no, let's just have a bloody fight right here and now and see if we can sort out whatever the hell is so stupid about us that's keeping us in this dismal hell. And why? Well, because otherwise we're just stuck with this misery. And if you can walk away and if you can leave, which you can if you're not bound together, then you're not going to withstand the horrible process of heat and pressure that's required to make you transform. You'll just walk around that. You'll just look for an excuse. I mean, people look for an excuse not to do that anyways. And so part of the reason you get married is so you're desperate enough to change. And maybe that doesn't even work. So those are the reasons that, no, there's one more. There's one more. This is the next thing. It's a necessary act of faith. And, you know, in our culture, because we're not very wise, we think that faith means, especially when it's parodied as religious faith, we think faith means the willingness to suspend disbelief while swallowing a proposition that any fool would reject. That's often how the rationalist atheists view religious claims. Faith means the suspension of your rationality and the acceptance of an absurd claim. But that isn't what faith means. Not really. Faith is what makes movement into the unknown possible. And you need to move into the unknown because that's where you're moving. And because the unknown is unknown, because the future is unknown, you cannot step forward into the unknown without faith. It wouldn't be unknown if you knew it. If you knew it, it wouldn't require faith, but you don't know it. And so you step forward into the unknown future as a consequence of your faith in some principles. And if you love someone, if you fall in love with someone and you decide to marry them, you don't have the evidence at hand that that's the right person for you. What you have instead is the joint decision that come hell or high water, you're going to struggle forward together. And then you don't even know if that's the right decision. Because you're not going to know till you've been married, like your whole life. You're not going to have the data. And so you do have to throw yourself into the abyss to be married. Just like you have to throw yourself into the abyss to be alive. You have to move forward in faith. And then you might say, well, how do you call the best out of yourself and out of your partner, that may be a partner that you're fortunate enough to love? And the answer might be by offering them the gift of faith and by saying, look, you know, flawed as we both are, if we commit to each other, we have the possibility of becoming more than we are. And I'd like to do that with you, even though there's no evidence that it's going to work. But then you might think too, the more deeply you're committed to that faith, the more likely it is to work. And you can't find out what that commitment is without the commitment, and so you can't simulate it by living together. Because it's not real. It's not real until you make the commitment. And then I would also say, well, what if you don't make the commitment? Well, then you're not committed. And you might say, well, why should I be committed? Well, what's the alternative? It's to be uncommitted. Well, are you free then? Or are you just aimless and hopeless and confused? And you admire people who are committed to something. You sort of wish yourself, when you're feeling aimless and you feel that your life is meaningless, you might think, well, I really wish I was committed to something. Wouldn't it be nice to be committed to something? It's like, well, commit to something then. And you say, well, I don't have the evidence. It's like, You don't commit because of the evidence. You commit because of faith. And there's foolish faith, there's naive faith and there's blind faith. And I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking about staking your life on something that might work if you just, if God was willing, if the fate smiled on you and you put your whole soul into it. And that's what you do when you vow to stay faithful to someone. And you can't simulate that. It doesn't work. So there's like 5 reasons why it doesn't work. And I don't know if you find those reasons compelling or not, but I've thought about them a lot. And maybe there's a part of me that wishes that isn't how life was, and that you could just have a casual relationship with someone and then trade them in on someone better if they happen to come along. But I just don't believe that's delusional to believe that, at best. And it's like Machiavellian, psychopathic and narcissistic and criminal at worst. And so